I'm Mary Beth Sewald, CEO of the Vegas Chamber. This week, the Vegas Chamber is doing our annual Washington, D.C. fly-in, where we will share the latest information from our nation's capital. I'm so pleased today that we have with us Cheryl Oldham, Vice President of Education Policy for the U.S. Chamber. Cheryl, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I wish I was in Vegas with you.
Well, we do too. We do too. You know, we know that education is just so very important. It's such an important topic for our business community. I'd really like to highlight some of the points that you shared with our members today. So could you tell us a little bit about what's been the impact of COVID on education in the United States, and what are some of the policy discussions about education right now?
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to say, and I said this when I talked to your delegation, so important that you guys have this on the agenda. I mean, number one, the fact that you would carve time out to talk about this, it's obviously a priority for you, and that is really, really important. And it was one of the first things I said, which is the business community's engagement in K through 12 education is long. There's a long history there. We need it now more than ever, I think, and part of what I said, and I think is really, we have long tried to overcome some challenges in K through 12 education. Certainly, a focus on reading and math. We're all, no one is knocking it out of the park on this. We have low proficiency rates for fourth graders and eighth graders, where we assess every 2 years. And, we've all been focused on how do we ensure every kid, regardless of economic circumstance or background, has a good education. So we have, we've all focused on this. We make progress here and there. But then COVID hit, and it sort of exacerbated everything that was already a problem. So when you have to go virtual, you lose people because of that. Access to internet and connectivity is an issue. If they have access, maybe it's affordability. They can't afford it. So then you have issues of, virtual truancy, as we're now calling it. So kids aren't logging on. They either don't have access, or they don't have a parent there that is making sure that they do. What kiddo is gonna, if left to their own devices. And so, all of these issues, and then, the quality of the instruction, the quality of the experience, when we all went basically, shut down and virtual overnight, the experience was, I would probably say, I think everybody would agree, probably subpar in most places, the education experience last spring. So how much learning loss has been suffered between March and now, as we're all returning to school. And these are all things that we'll need to really get a handle on. We can't know what supports and intervention students need if we don't know where they are in their learning and how much has been lost.
Okay. What would you say, Cheryl, is the impact of the 2020 election? What do you think the impact will be on education policy in the U.S.?
Oh, boy, that is a great question.
The $1 million question, right?
I think pretty great. It's interesting because, Vice President Biden was obviously vice president under Barack Obama, and that was a pretty moderate administration when it came to education. There was a lot of I think, bipartisanship, sort of nonpartisanship around education. The Obama administration was supportive of charter schools, and so there was a lot that, we worked with them all the time on a variety of things. But it feels like that could have shifted a bit. At least the rhetoric out of the campaign suggests that, maybe they won't be as supportive of charter schools. Maybe there will be, that maybe not so much on accountability. So it feels like there's going to be potentially some changes if we are to shift. And I think, and if President Trump remains, it's pretty clear. I think folks have said that Secretary DeVos is likely to step down at some point, that one term was all she was planning to do, and that there will be a different secretary. And so, what the priorities for a Trump administration in K through 12 education, there really haven't been, that great of focus. What I will say, though, is that we are up for reauthorization for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. It's been 5 years. That's not to say it'll happen anytime real soon, but I think that will be where a lot of opportunity for change will occur in Congress.
Okay. And we all know that education and workforce are so very closely tied. What are some of the efforts now in Washington to better align education policy with the workforce skills that this country needs?
Yeah. So this is something that, we at the Chamber have focused a long time on, and our focus really is outside of Washington on this issue. I mean, there's some that Washington can do. There's certainly Workforce Investment Act, Workforce Opportunity and Investment Act. That's sort of the workforce funding, but it's not a lot. There's career and technical education funding. Again, that's not a lot. The bulk of the money really is in states. And so that alignment is really, our focus has been, how do we embolden with resources and the right strategies, the business community to really lead on this? Because it's got to be from the business community to say, these are the skills that are important to us. Here are the jobs that we need to fill. Here are the competencies, the credential requirements that we that we require, and they need to be the leaders in this space. And then we can work on the government, resources to support that. But I think if we look to government to say what programs they should be funding, or what the needs of the business community are, I think that's why we have ended up in this place that we are currently in, which is, a mismatch of what is being taught and what is needed.
All right. Well, Cheryl Oldham, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us today. We really appreciate you spending time with the Vegas Chamber on our virtual Washington, D.C. fly-in. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you so much for your leadership.
Oh, absolutely. All right. And for all the latest details of the Vegas Chamber's DC fly-in, you can follow the Vegas Chamber on social media at LV Chamber and hashtag DC in LV. All right. Thanks so much. I'm Mary Beth Sewald.